Today we're continuing on in Go Math, and we're doing lesson 11.2. Okay, so we're moving on from yesterday. We're going to be working in that same packet that we worked on yesterday. And today, by the end of the lesson, you should be able to classify triangles. Once again, what does it mean to classify things? Everyone, to sort. Very good. But first, let's talk about the problem of the day. If you look closely at Epcot Center's Spaceship Earth building, that's that big circle building, you might see a pattern of triangles. So that picture right there is a zoomed in view of that building. Okay, the triangle outlined in the pattern, do you guys see the triangle outlined? It's kind of hard when it's black and white on your picture, so look at mine up here. There's a triangle like that. Okay, take a highlighter and highlight one triangle like that on your picture. The information tells us that it has 3 congruent sides. What does congruent mean again? Equal. So I can draw tick marks to show that it has 3 congruent sides and 3 acute angles. What does acute mean? This is a review from 4th grade. Talk at your table groups. What does acute angles mean? Now, an angle is what is formed when 2 line segments meet. So if here's one line segment and here's another line segment. What is formed here is called an angle. Okay? There are 3 kinds of angles. An acute angle is an angle that is less than 90 degrees. Is this more or less than 90 degrees? Less. So that is an acute angle. Very good. Then we learned about another kind of angle yesterday. Here's a line segment, and here's a line segment. And where they meet, it forms it's called a right angle. And a right angle measures exactly 90 degrees. Very good. Okay, sometimes you might have a line segment like this and a line segment like this. They also form an angle, don't they? Is this one more or less than 90 degrees? More. And so we call those obtuse angles. Obtuse angles are angles that are greater than 90 degrees. We can classify triangles in 2 ways. How many ways can we classify triangles? 2 different ways. Just like we can classify this piece of paper in lots of different ways. We can say it's white. We can classify it by its shape. What's its shape? Rectangle. We can classify it by its thickness. It's not very thin. It's printer paper, right? So there's lots of different ways to classify something. How many different ways can we classify this guy? What's one way to classify him? What's one attribute about him? Luke. He's orange. We can classify him by his color. Sawyer. His property, he can squeak. So can something have more than one attribute? So how many different ways can we classify triangles? 2. So one way is we can classify triangles by the lengths of their sides. We can compare to see if their lengths are all the same, or 2 of them are the same, or they're all different. We can also classify angles by the measures of their angles. Okay, so it's 2 different categories. Does that make sense? Let's first talk about the first category, by the lengths of their sides. If a triangle has 3 congruent sides, you can see this is 3 inches, this is 3 inches, and this is 3 inches. All 3 sides are exactly the same length. We call that an equilateral triangle. Everyone say equilateral. Equilateral. Now look at this next triangle. This part is 3 inches, this side is 3 inches, and this side is 2 inches. How many congruent sides does that triangle have? 2. So every triangle that has exactly 2 congruent sides, we call it an isosceles triangle. Everyone say isosceles. Isosceles. Very good. Now if we look at the last triangle down there, this side right here is 3 inches, this side right here is 4 inches, and this side right here is 5 inches. How many congruent sides does it have? 0. So all triangles that have 0 congruent sides, we call them scalene triangles. Everyone say scalene. Scalene. Very good. Okay, now we can also classify triangles by looking at the measures of their angles. So if a triangle has exactly one 90-degree or right angle, we call it a right triangle. Okay, circle the right angle and then right angle. Now if this right here is an acute triangle. Okay, it tells us. Look at the 3 angles. What do you notice about the 3 angle measurements? They're all less than 90 degrees, which means they're all acute angles. So an acute triangle has 3 acute angles. Very good. Okay. Now, This one right here is called an obtuse triangle. Look at the measures of its angles. How would you describe its angle measurements? Go ahead and talk at your table groups. You can see it has 2 acute angles and 1 obtuse angle. So an obtuse triangle has exactly 1 obtuse angle. So let me ask you a question. Can a triangle be equilateral and right? Yes. Can I make a isosceles acute triangle? Could I? Could I? How do you know? Talk at your table groups. So keep in mind, these are 2 different descriptors. I can make an equilateral triangle that's also acute. But I cannot make an acute triangle that's also obtuse, because by definition, they're 2 separate things. Does that make sense? Okay, yes? Good. So therefore, this triangle is an equilateral acute triangle. Your job with your partner is going to be to classify what kind of triangle A, B, C is. Eyes up here for a moment, please. We call triangles by their letters. These points, A is this point right here. This point right here is point A. This point right here is point B. And this point right here is point C. We call triangles by the names of their points. So the triangle A, B, C is describing this triangle. Does that make sense? Your job with your partner is to measure the sides of triangle A, B, and C using centimeters. Notice it says centimeter ruler. Label each side with how many centimeters long it is. Okay? Then classify the triangle by the lengths of its sides. Next, it tells you to use a protractor. We're not going to use that right now. You're going to look at the angles and decide, is it more than 90 degrees or less than 90 degrees? And then you're going to classify the triangle by the measures of those angles. You're also going to answer the 2 questions up here. Make sense? And you're going to fill in right here what kind of triangle ABC is. Go ahead and do that.